This story starts in a training hall. Two shirtless men clashed fiercely in it. Their bodies moved with speed and precision, kicks and punches colliding with bursts of impact. Our main character, Su Hong, launched a powerful strike, while his opponent blocked and countered with equal force. Their fists met in midair, creating a shockwave that echoed through the hall. As the bout ended, Su Hong's opponent stumbled back, clutching his chest in pain. He winced and muttered that it hurt like hell. Around them, other students continued their own sparring sessions, the sound of hits filling the large, brightly lit training hall. That classmate called out to Su Hong, praising his progress. He said that Su Hong's diamond fist had improved again, and asked if he had reached the level of subtlety. Su Hong adjusted his stance and calmly replied that he had reached subtlety 2 days ago. Subtlety was one of the martial arts realms in this world. Mastery of any martial art could be divided into 5 levels: entry, proficiency, subtlety, great accomplishment, and perfection. Each stage represented a new depth of understanding and power. Hearing Su Hong's answer, the classmate's eyes widened with admiration. Giving a thumbs up, he said that in terms of diamond fist, nobody in their class could match Su Hong's level. Su Hong then turned toward his classmate and asked with determination if he had rested enough, suggesting they continue their training. His words carried a sense of tireless drive that made the other student freeze in surprise. His expression changed to irritation as he yelled that Su Hong was a training maniac. He grabbed his bag and declared that he was leaving to go home and eat instead. Su Hong was surprised as he watched his classmate dash toward the exit. At the door, the classmate waved and cheerfully said goodbye to Teacher Lee, who was just entering the hall. The teacher, looking calm but slightly exasperated, reminded him to put his clothes on properly before leaving. The student laughed awkwardly and hurried off, still half-dressed. Teacher Lee then looked around the hall until his eyes settled on Su Hong. His tone became serious as he said that he had finally found him. He asked Su Hong if he was applying for the martial division, his voice firm and expectant. As Su Hong wiped sweat from his neck, the teacher continued, asking why he hadn't yet paid the 30,000 yuan registration fee, warning that registration would close next Monday. Hearing that, Su Hong paused, looking slightly tense. Lowering his head, he asked in a quiet tone if the teacher could give him a few more days. The teacher sighed and softened his expression. He told Su Hong that he understood his family was struggling, but there was nothing he could do about it. The rules were strict, and exceptions weren't allowed. Hearing that, Su Hong fell silent, his eyes showing a trace of worry and determination mixed together. Late at night, the training hall was silent, except for the sound of fists cutting through the air. The bright lights reflected off the polished wooden floor, while the moon shone faintly through the glass ceiling. In the center of the hall stood Su Hong, alone, his duffel bag nearby. He moved tirelessly, practicing his techniques again and again. Each punch echoed sharply, showing his frustration and determination. As he exhaled heavily, his thoughts focused on the words from earlier: 30,000 yuan for the registration fee. The number repeated in his mind over and over. Sweat ran down his body, his breathing heavy as he struck the air with even more force, whispering to himself, 30,000 yuan, 30,000 yuan. His mind drifted back to his childhood. He remembered a time when he was only 3 years old, crying amidst rubble and smoke. His parents had died during a ferocious beast disaster, leaving him all alone among the ruins. The memory of loss and helplessness still lingered vividly in his heart. After that tragedy, his uncle and aunt had taken him in, raising him as part of their family. He looked at a photograph showing all of them smiling together, a happy family that had supported him through everything. Once they discovered his talent in martial arts, they encouraged him wholeheartedly, helping him pursue training even when times were tough. Because in this era where the world was plagued by monstrous beasts, martial artists were considered the top earners, protectors, and symbols of hope. It was a path of both glory and survival. Yet as Su Hong looked down, his fists tightened. He whispered bitterly that he had trained in martial arts so his family could live better lives, but instead he was making things harder for them. His expression turned heavy with guilt and frustration, his body trembling under the weight of his own ambition and helplessness. Late at night, the quiet street was lit by a single street lamp, its light spilling across the narrow road. The small apartment building stood still under the calm blue sky, with the faint glow of indoor lights showing signs of life within. Su Hong returned home, his steps slow and tired. He stopped outside the door, his hand resting on the handle as he heard voices coming from inside. His aunt and uncle were talking about money again. His uncle asked how much they were short on rent since the payment date was approaching. But his aunt replied softly that rent could wait. They should focus on paying Su Hong's registration fee first. His uncle agreed, saying that Hong's talent was exceptional and that he would surely become someone great one day. He added that they couldn't afford to hold him back, no matter what it took. Su Hong's expression darkened as he listened. His aunt and uncle's voices softened again. His aunt suggested stopping her medication to save money, saying they didn't help anyway. But his uncle quickly refused, insisting he would take on an extra job so she could rest and not worry about anything. Standing silently outside, Su Hong clenched his fists. The sound of their kind words weighed heavily on him. He pressed his hands against his ears, unable to bear hearing any more of their sacrifices. Moments later, he pushed open the door with a forced smile and called out, "Uncle, Aunt, I'm home." His aunt smiled warmly, telling him he must be exhausted from practicing so late again. Su Hong tried to step forward and help, offering to take over her chores. But his aunt waved him off with a proud grin, saying couldn't she handle this little thing. His uncle firmly told him to go rest. His aunt chuckled and gently reminded him to listen and get some sleep. Su Hong looked at them both, his chest tightening with a mix of gratitude and guilt. The warmth of their home contrasted deeply with the struggle behind it. The night moonlight filtered through the window, casting soft patterns across the small room. Su Hong lay awake on his bed, staring quietly at the ceiling. Thoughts of his uncle and aunt filled his mind. They had already sacrificed so much for him. Clenching his fists under the blanket, he silently promised himself that he wouldn't let them suffer any longer. In his mind, he spoke to them, saying that they had done more than enough for him, and that from now on he would handle his own problems. His eyes hardened with resolve, as a plan began to form. He knew that for a martial practitioner to earn tens of thousands in just a few days, there was only one place to go. The next day, sunlight gleamed on a tall building surrounded by trees. It was the entrance to the underground fight club. Inside, an electrifying atmosphere filled the air as the announcer's voice echoed across the arena. "Folks in the crowd, welcome to the Martial Disciple Guard Challenge. No holds barred, life or death, victory is all that matters." In the center of the brightly lit ring stood a tall man wearing a Red Bull mask, his body covered in muscle. The announcer's tone rose with excitement as she introduced him, saying that today, holding down the stage, was the one and only Mr. Minotaur. The crowd roared as the rules were announced. Anyone who could win 4 matches in a row would walk away with 60,000 in prize money. Lose even once, and they'd get nothing. Among the audience, whispers began to spread. Some people noticed a masked newcomer stepping into the arena. One guy asked who that guy was, saying he had never seen him before. Another crossed his arms and said he was a newbie. A third spectator leaned forward, frowning, saying a newbie jumping straight into the guard challenge was just asking to die. As the lights focused on the stage, the tension thickened. Su Hong, hidden beneath the bull mask, was about to risk everything. Under the blinding lights of the arena, the announcer nudged Su Hong, who was wearing the bull mask. With a confident smile, she told him to liven things up and get the crowd excited. Su Hong tilted his head in confusion, scratching his mask. He asked how he was supposed to hype up the crowd. She rolled her eyes slightly, waving her hand dismissively. She explained that he should provoke them, throw some trash talk, stir them up. She muttered under her breath about how troublesome newbies could be. Hearing that, the masked Su Hong nodded firmly and gave a thumbs up. Then, stepping forward to the center of the stage, he clenched his fists and shouted with full confidence, declaring himself invincible against anyone below a martial artist. He challenged all weaklings to come and face him. Hearing that, the crowd immediately burst into noise. Some were shocked at his arrogance, whispering among themselves. One man frowned and said he was too cocky, while another laughed and called him a badass. Others muttered that he wouldn't even know how he died later. Excitement filled the air as people began chanting loudly, calling for his defeat, urging the fight to start. The announcer raised her microphone high and shouted, "Let's begin the match." As the crowd's cheers echoed through the arena, Su Hong stood tall behind his bull mask, his eyes sharpened with focus. He could feel the killing intent surrounding him. It was far stronger than anything he had felt before, but he wasn't surprised. This was the underground fight club, where life and death were always close. Taking a deep breath, he thought to himself that this was the only way to earn the tuition money quickly. He tightened his fists and murmured in determination, hoping that his diamond fist would bring him the victories he needed. The moment the match began, one of the fighters, a man wearing a mouse-shaped mask, stepped forward and shouted angrily at Su Hong. "Cocky punk. I'll play with you," he yelled, his body already in motion as he lunged forward with sharp momentum, standing calmly in the center of the ring. Su Hong watched the opponent's movements with a steady gaze from behind his bull mask. His sharp eyes analyzed the man's form in an instant. He noticed the speed and aggression, but also saw the weakness in the man's footing. His lower stance was unstable, his balance off. Su Hong smirked slightly, thinking to himself that this opponent would be easy to handle. The mouse-masked fighter closed in on Su Hong fast, shouting, "What are you daydreaming about?" He swung his fist towards Su Hong's head with a burst of power, but before the strike could land, Su Hong's arm moved like lightning. Energy gathered around his hands, swirling with bright blue force. With precise control, he unleashed his martial technique, the floating light palm. His glowing hand slammed straight into the attacker's face, the impact echoing across the arena. The mouse-masked man's eyes rolled back as his body was lifted off the ground and sent crashing into the floor with tremendous force. The crowd erupted in shock as Su Hong stood over his fallen opponent, the air around him still trembling from the energy of his strike. Under the blinding lights of the arena, Su Hong, wearing the bull mask, stood tall over his fallen opponent. Raising his fist high toward the ceiling, he shouted loudly, demanding the next challenger. The crowd erupted into cheers as the announcer's excited voice echoed through the speakers. "Minotaur, 1 win," she declared, her tone filled with energy. The audience roared in approval. Shouts of "badass" and "unbelievable" filled the air, the tension in the arena growing thicker with excitement. Soon after, another fighter stepped onto the stage. He was a tall man with curly blonde hair and a red mask covering his face. His muscular frame and confident smirk made it clear that he wasn't a rookie. The man taunted Su Hong, calling it a lucky break. Cracking his knuckles, he told Su Hong that his luck had run out now that he was facing him. Su Hong, still wearing his bull mask, stood calmly. His eyes narrowed as he observed the new opponent. Then, in a steady voice, he gestured for the man to make the first move. He analyzed his opponent's physique and aura, noting that the man seemed skilled and experienced, just the right kind of fighter to test the true strength of his diamond fist technique. The air grew still for a moment before the blonde fighter roared, charging forward with incredible speed. "Incoming," he shouted, as his massive frame blurred into motion. The two fists collided in a flash of blue energy, the shockwaves spreading across the stage. Both men gritted their teeth as their power clashed violently. The masked opponent widened his eyes, shocked by the strength he felt. It was the powerful fist wind that made him realize the impact behind Su Hong's strike. But Su Hong, calm and unshaken, analyzed the exchange with precision. His opponent's punch was strong, but still weaker than his. As the clash of fists echoed through the arena, Su Hong punched his opponent with his other hand. His punch landed squarely on the opponent's face. The masked man's mind raced as he felt his opponent's overwhelming strength. Su Hong's eyes sharpened beneath the bull mask. His analytical gaze focused on the fighter's movements. After taking the punch, his opponent's upper body was overcommitted, and his waist was left wide open with flaws. Taking advantage of that instant, Su Hong's body twisted sharply, and he kicked his opponent with explosive power. The impact sent the opponent flying across the ring, the force blasting through the air like thunder. The audience gasped in disbelief. "Holy crap! He's strong!" someone shouted from the stands. Dust and shattered flooring marked where the opponent had crashed, lying motionless. Su Hong straightened his back, his voice echoing through the silent arena. "Next," he said firmly. The announcer jumped with excitement, raising her microphone. "Minotaur, 2 wins in a row," she shouted, her voice filled with awe and energy as the crowd erupted once again. Inside the underground fighting arena, the crowd roared as Minotaur stood victorious once again in the center of the ring. In a luxurious viewing room above the ring, several men in black suits stood guard around an older man dressed sharply in a black suit. He watched the scene below with calm interest, his tone low and assessing. Looking at Su Hong, the man murmured that he wasn't even a quasi-martial artist, yet his strength was far above that of average disciples. That kid was no joke. Just then, the announcer's voice echoed through the loudspeakers. "Minotaur, 3 wins in a row," she shouted, excitement filling the air. "That man in the suit said Su Hong was not elite, but solid enough," he commented with a smirk, saying he was perfect for throwing matches. From behind him, a younger man wearing a fox-like mask spoke with determination. He called the old man in the suit teacher, and said he would recruit him. The older man turned slightly, his tone calm but commanding. He told his disciple not to let on that he had already advanced to martial artist. Meanwhile, down in the arena, Su Hong wiped the sweat from his face. His eyes remained sharp and focused as he analyzed his situation. He thought that his subtlety-level diamond fist had no trouble dealing with these regular disciples. As the defeated fighters were carried away, Su Hong clenched his fist, his expression steady and confident. A faint smirk crossed his lips, as he thought that with one more win, he would get that 60,000. But the crowd suddenly erupted in excitement, their voices echoing through the arena. Someone shouted from the stands that it was White Fox. Su Hong, wearing his bull mask, froze for a moment and turned his gaze toward the entrance. Everyone's eyes widened slightly when they realized that White Fox was challenging too. From the opposite end of the stage, the man known as White Fox walked calmly onto the platform. The crowd murmured, whispering among themselves. Someone asked if he wasn't Quasi. One person said a Quasi fighting against disciples was a total cheat. Su Hong's expression hardened as he assessed the situation. Hearing that his opponent this time was Quasi, he muttered under his breath that this one was tricky, but he couldn't lose. Determination gleamed in his eyes as his stance lowered, ready for battle. Across from him, the white-haired man in the fox mask smiled faintly. A confident glint flashed in his golden eyes. Stepping forward with composed elegance, he adjusted his white suit and spoke in a calm, steady tone. He told Su Hong not to fear, saying he knew his limits. Under the bright arena lights, the announcer raised her hand and shouted across the stage, declaring the start of the guard challenge final round. Both fighters stood ready, Minotaur with his fists clenched, and White Fox calmly standing tall in his white suit. The crowd held its breath as tension filled the air. Then, with a sharp cry, the announcer commanded, "Begin." In an instant, both figures burst forward, moving so fast that their afterimages trailed behind. The ground cracked beneath their feet as they collided in the center of the stage. Su Hong's eyes focused sharply beneath his bull mask. He thought to himself that his realm was lower, so his first move had to be all in. His muscles tightened, and with a roar, he launched a powerful punch straight at White Fox. The impact tore through the air like thunder. A wave of force spread outward, shaking the ring. But as the shock cleared, Su Hong's expression changed. Something felt off. He staggered back slightly, his eyes widening. After feeling his opponent's power, he realized that he was no Quasi. Sweat rolled down Su Hong's face as his thoughts raced. He realized that his opponent was a real martial artist. He was holding back his chi and blood on purpose. Su Hong's opponent wasn't just strong, he was far beyond the level of an ordinary challenger. White Fox's golden eyes gleamed from behind his mask as he drew in a deep breath. His voice was calm yet filled with restrained power. As he inhaled, a faint red aura began to rise around him, swirling like flames. Then, in a blur of movement, he stepped forward. His fist crackled with energy as he roared, rushing thunder fist, striking Su Hong in the face. The impact hit like a lightning bolt. Su Hong's body was sent flying backward, blood spraying from his mouth. He struggled to regain his balance, disbelief flashing across his eyes. He thought in shock if this was the strength of a true martial artist. The sheer force of the punch left the crowd stunned. In the audience, several people recognized the technique instantly. One guy shouted that it was triple ringing thunder fist. Another laughed, saying Minotaur was toast. On the stage, White Fox didn't stop. His fists moved like a storm, every strike heavy and precise. He taunted Su Hong between blows, asking if he was just going to defend. He told Su Hong to fight back and show him what he had. Su Hong, in the Minotaur mask, blocked with both arms, his muscles trembling under the continuous barrage. The sound of fists colliding echoed like thunderclaps across the arena. Inside, he gritted his teeth, thinking desperately that if this kept up, it was over. His mind raced as he struggled to stay on his feet. Gotta find a counter chance, he thought, scanning for an opening through the blinding flurry of punches. White Fox, surrounded by a red aura, advanced relentlessly. Each blow carried the weight of a storm, forcing Minotaur further back. White Fox's movements were sharp, precise, and merciless. Suddenly, White Fox found an opening. Minotaur raised his fists to block an incoming strike, but the force behind it still tore through his defense. His eyes widened as the impact exploded against his guard. With a roar, White Fox swung his fist, colliding against Su Hong's face with all his strength. The arena shook from the clash as Su Hong was sent flying backward. He hit the ground hard, his vision blurring as pain coursed through his body. His consciousness started fading fast, his body refusing to move. White Fox stood tall, brushing the dust off his white suit. Calmly, he stepped forward and placed his foot on Minotaur's chest. His voice was cold yet casual as he said, "Brother, This match's prize money? 0 for you. A faint mocking smile curved beneath his mask as he spoke calmly. He said that his teacher had invited Minotaur to join them, to throw fights in their favor from now on. If he agreed, they would pay him the prize money regardless of today's outcome. Su Hong, in the Minotaur mask, glared up at him through the pane, his breathing heavy but his resolve unbroken. With a strained voice, he spat out his answer, saying that he would never do that kind of dirty work. Hearing that, White Fox's expression darkened. His tone dropped as he leaned closer, warning Minotaur to think it over carefully, because refusing them was something he couldn't handle. But even while lying bloodied on the floor, Minotaur's voice carried defiance. He shouted that people like them dared to call themselves martial artists while doing such disgraceful things. White Fox let out a small laugh and straightened up. "Guess no deal then," he said coldly. In the next moment, his expression turned vicious. His aura flared red as he charged forward, shouting that he would end Minotaur right there, and that from now on he could dream of being a martial artist only in his sleep. He raised his leg to attack. At that moment, Minotaur's eyes widened, blood dripping down his face, as fury and determination burned within them. White Fox lunged in to deliver the finishing blow, but Su Hong moved swiftly and dodged his attack. White Fox's golden eyes widened in shock as something unexpected happened. Minotaur's body trembled, flames of determination burning around him as he rose to his feet. His breathing was heavy, but his voice carried unshakable resolve. He muttered to himself that he couldn't fail here. He couldn't fail at all. Step by step, he forced his battered body forward, his fiery aura growing brighter with each breath. White Fox froze in disbelief as he watched. His eyes widened behind the mask, and his mind screamed in shock. He couldn't believe it. Minotaur had taken a direct hit from his rushing thunder fist and was still standing. As memories flashed before his eyes, Minotaur's expression hardened. He remembered his family, the uncle and aunt who had sacrificed so much for him. He whispered that he wanted them to live good lives, that he couldn't let their years of effort go to waste. But another thought tore through him. Could he really abandon the martial artist's code just to survive? The question burned inside his heart. A vision of his family appeared before him, but the image shattered like glass. His voice rose in defiance as he shouted, "No, that future, hell no." At that moment, a glowing system screen flickered before him, its cold light forming words. "Then, for your family, for your faith, what price will you pay?" Minotaur's eyes blazed red. Lightning crackled around his body as he clenched his fists. His voice erupted with power and conviction as he shouted that he would give everything. In an instant, his aura exploded outward, engulfing the arena in a storm of fire and electricity. His eyes glowed fiercely as he stood tall once again, reborn through sheer willpower. A glowing screen appeared above Su Hong, asking what he was willing to give. Su Hong's body burned with red flames as he stood firm, and he answered with a powerful shout that he would give everything. Just as he said that, the scene in front of him shifted. His bull mask disappeared as he opened his eyes in a strange digital-looking space filled with vertical blue lights. His expression showed confusion as he looked around. He stood alone inside a large hall, and a huge dark shadow stretched behind him, forming monstrous shapes on the ground. He whispered a question, asking where this place was. A burst of golden light filled the hall. A towering, radiant figure appeared in front of him, its body shining like a golden statue with long, flowing limbs. Facing the blinding glow, Su Hong looked up as the figure asked who he was. The glowing figure leaned forward and said it would give him a chance. Its light began to scatter around the hall. Golden energy circled Su Hong. Rings of light wrapped around his body as the power gathered around him, swirling faster and brighter. The next second, a golden tablet appeared in front of him, with a loud shattering light. Su Hong stumbled back, staring at the shining screen, forming before his eyes. The tablet displayed his information. Su Hong looked at it in confusion as the words formed clearly. His name, Su Hong. His blood energy, 85. His spirit, 23. His physique, mortal body at 3%. His first quest, Path of the Arena. His diamond fist subtle mastery at 7%. Floating light palm proficient at 35%. Void step proficient at 56%. And his martial Dao points at 0%. He raised his hand toward the tablet, tapping it carefully. He wondered if the strange thing was touch-operated. The glowing screen continued to float before him, listing his quest. Su Hong saw the description telling him to train his martial arts and face White Fox outside. The quest objective was to hone his skills, raise Diamond Fist to Grand Achievement, and raise Floating Light Palm and Void Step to Subtle Mastery. For the quest reward, The system told him that this was a beginner tutorial, so there was no reward. Current progress showed his Diamond Fist subtle mastery at 7%, Floating Light Palm proficient at 35%, and Void Step proficient at 56%. It also noted that this quest could unlock a beginner tutorial. Su Hong read through it with narrowed eyes, quietly repeating the words beginner tutorial as he tried to understand. While he was thinking about that, something suddenly appeared behind him, forming from the blue light. The next second, Su Hong's head snapped sharply as a fast blow came toward his head from behind, cutting off his thoughts in an instant. It was a clone of Su Hong. It rushed toward him with a fierce strike, forcing Su Hong to lower his body and dodge. The two figures moved at high speed, their motions blurring as their blows passed each other by inches. Su Hong's eyes widened in shock. He realized the attacker looked exactly like him. He understood that the figure was his clone, and the clone was using Diamond Fist just like he did. As he watched the movements, he noticed that the clone's technique looked even more polished than his own, clean and precise, like a perfect demonstration. Su Hong's breathing steadied as he analyzed the fight. Seeing such a refined example in front of him, he thought it was a chance he could not waste. He tightened his stance and moved forward, deciding to learn from the flawless execution displayed by the clone. The two clashed again, their arms striking in a clean collision. Suddenly, the clone grabbed Su Hong's arm and moved to attack. Su Hong watched every detail, thinking that the clone seemed to be showing the technique step by step. But before he could react properly, the clone's attack came too fast. Su Hong's expression changed in panic as the punch hit him squarely in the torso. His body bent from the impact, and he cried out as the force blasted him backward. Su Hong slid across the floor, coughing lightly as he steadied himself. His clone stood firmly on the other side, the force of its last attack still rippling through the air. For a moment, Su Hong glanced at the golden panel glowing beside him. The progress bar under Diamond Fist showed a new number. He stared in surprise, remembering it had been 7% before. Now it displayed 10%. He wondered how he had improved so quickly. He tightened his stance again, realizing that fighting here really did allow him to raise his martial skills at an incredible speed. Both he and the clone rushed forward at the same time, their steps carving sharp lines across the floor as they closed the distance in an instant. Their fists clashed again and again. Each collision sent out shockwaves, and with every exchange, the mastery numbers on the floating panels increased. One panel showed Diamond Fist reaching 15%. Another panel flashed as Su Hong's level climbed to 23%. The two continued moving, their bodies blurring as they shifted positions. The Void Step progress bars rose as well. Su Hong's Void Step reached 59%, then climbed to 70%. The battle continued, the room filled with streaks of motion and rising skill levels as the two figures pushed each other forward. They clashed again and again, their fists and palms striking with blinding speed. Each impact sent shockwaves through the air as their movements grew sharper, faster, and more refined. As they exchanged blows, glowing system panels appeared around them. The panels showed the progress of their skills. Floating Light Palm rose from 39% to 47%. Diamond Fist, subtle mastery increased to 62%. Void Step, proficient climbed from 82% to 88%. Diamond Fist, subtle mastery surged to 88%. Floating Light Palm, proficient reached 95%. Void Step, proficient pushed even higher to 97%. Their movements grew even more explosive as their mastery continued rising. Then, one panel flashed brightly. Floating Light Palm, proficient hit 100%, and the technique evolved into Floating Light Palm, proficient subtle mastery. The fighter unleashed the newly mastered technique, striking forward with overwhelming force. Another panel lit up. Void Step, proficient reached 100%, changing into Void Step, proficient subtle mastery. His body blurred as he stepped through the air with perfect precision. A final golden panel filled the screen. Diamond Fist, subtle mastery reached 100%, transforming into Diamond Fist, subtle mastery grand achievement. He threw a crushing punch, the blow landing cleanly and sending his clone flying. With this, the battle ended. He stood alone in the quiet hall, breathing heavily, as golden fragments of the clone drifted around him. He lowered his fists and exhaled with exhaustion. He breathed out softly. A moment later, a system window appeared in front of him. The notification congratulated player Su Hong, telling him that he had completed the quest Path of the Arena. The quest rewards had been issued, and the system asked if he agreed to return to reality. He looked at it and whispered with a faint smile, "Thanks a lot." The next second, he returned to reality, where not even a second had passed. Wearing the bull mask, Su Hong stood calmly as flames rose around his body. His eyes glowed through the bull mask, and he gave a short reply, saying that he agreed. Across from him, White Fox watched the transformation with narrowed eyes. White Fox suddenly rushed forward. He called Su Hong a show-off and shouted for him to take his attack. His body shot across the arena in a straight line, wind trailing behind him. He attacked with explosive force and launched a fierce technique, his punch cutting through the air at high speed. But Su Hong moved even faster and dodged all his attacks easily. He then tilted his head slightly and answered in a low voice that White Fox's attack was too slow. Hearing that, White Fox's eyes widened. Before he could react, Su Hong's counterpunch smashed into him. The impact shattered the fox mask into pieces, sending fragments flying and knocking him backward. Su Hong rushed forward with fierce determination, his eyes sharp as debris scattered around him. The crowd in the stands gasped in shock as they watched the impact unfold. In the ring, the Minotaur-masked Su Hong stood tall and unmoving. His dark silhouette and glowing eyes loomed over his fallen opponent, who lay unconscious at his feet. The arena fell silent. A moment later, Su Hong looked toward the side of the ring where the announcer was standing. He spoke calmly, saying he had won the fourth match, and asked when he would receive his prize money. The announcer nearby blinked in surprise, before answering in a flustered tone. Inside the VIP viewing room, Fox Mask's teacher watched as the announcer announced the victory. She declared that Minotaur had successfully defended the arena and won the 60,000 yuan grand prize. The old man stared ahead in disbelief, as he questioned how a martial apprentice could reach grand achievement in Diamond Fist, something even trained warriors struggled to do. He ordered his subordinates to follow the Minotaur and find out who he really was. The two men in suits bowed and replied that they understood. Sometime later, the night was quiet as Su Hong walked alone down a narrow street, his hands in his pockets and his steps echoing softly between the buildings. His expression remained calm, but his eyes shifted slightly, sensing something behind him. Farther back in the alley, two men in black suits hid in the shadows, watching him carefully. When Su Hong glanced over his shoulder, the two men stiffened. A moment later, he suddenly disappeared from their view, leaving them confused. They rushed farther into the alley, whispering anxiously. One of them complained that the boss had ordered them to uncover Su Hong's identity. Yet they had already lost him. Above their heads, Su Hong clung effortlessly between the walls, suspended high above the alley. He watched them with a relaxed expression and muttered that they were still trying to tail him. The night sky hung quietly above Su Hong's neighborhood. 1 hour after escaping from the men tailing him, Su Hong returned home. Inside the house, Su Hong's family stared in shock at the huge stack of cash on the table. His uncle leaned forward with trembling hands and asked if he had robbed a bank, wondering where all that money came from. His aunt looked equally stunned, unable to believe her eyes. Su Hong sat across from them with a calm smile. He explained that he had been working as a sparring partner at a dojo. He said the dojo master thought he had potential, so he decided to sponsor Su Hong's training. His father frowned and reminded him that he had once said the dojo was extremely stingy. Su Hong reached out and held their hands, smiling brightly as he asked if they still didn't trust him. Hearing that, both his uncle and aunt softened. His aunt smiled with relief, and his uncle sighed happily. They said Xiao Hong would never do anything wrong, and praised him for finally making something of himself. Later that night, Su Hong moved quietly across the rooftop. Under the night sky, he sat beside a large, round water tank. He looked relaxed as he thought about his situation. He noted to himself that the martial exam registration fee was settled, and the rent was also settled. He added that his aunt's medical expenses would no longer be a problem either. A glowing system screen appeared in front of him. As he looked at it, he said that getting through this crisis was all thanks to the system. The screen displayed his name, Su Hong, along with his talent and stats. It showed his blood energy, spirit, and physique levels, along with 3 martial skills. Diamond Fist at Grand Achievement, 5%, Floating Light Palm at Subtle Mastery, 8%, and Void Step at Subtle Mastery, 9%. His martial Dao points were listed as 67. Su Hong observed that aside from his martial skill levels, the other stats didn't seem to have changed. Another notification appeared. It explained that he had gained 67 martial Dao points for defeating an opponent at a higher level. It said that martial Dao points could enhance blood energy and martial skills, and reminded him to allocate them wisely. Su Hong looked at the screen and said he should try it right now. He reached forward to adjust the numbers. A system sound followed, and the screen showed his blood energy rising to 90. Su Hong's eyes widened as energy surged through him. his entire body filled with heat and power. Flames of aura rose around him as he stood with a sharp, awakened expression. His clothes fluttered from the force of the energy as he felt the change taking place. Su Hong looked at the glowing screen in front of him. He whispered that a blood energy value of 90 was already equal to a quasi-warrior. Sweat slid down his face as he breathed out slowly. He then moved his hand across the transparent panel and said that he would pour all the remaining martial Dao points into blood energy. As he confirmed the action, lines of text appeared one after another, showing blood energy increasing by small amounts. As the numbers rose, he lifted his shirt slightly and examined his body. He noticed that his physical toughness had clearly improved, and even his injuries were almost healed. A strong wind swirled around him as he stood on the rooftop under the night sky. He could feel endless power gathering inside him. He realized he needed to find a place to test his current strength. He looked out across the rooftops, then leapt away from the building, moving quickly toward his next destination. He decided to go to the school's martial arena because they had a combat power tester there. Soon, he arrived at the outdoor martial arena of Star City No. 1 High School. His figure landed at the center of the wide circular platform under the moonlit sky. A Tier 1 combat power tester stood alone at the center. Su Hong walked toward the machine with steady footsteps. He stopped in front of it and prepared himself. He said that for his first punch, he would use 70% of his strength. Red energy flames rose around his body as he took his stance. His eyes sharpened, and a bright red glow flashed in one of them. He swung his fist forward with force. The punch landed on the tester, sending a powerful shockwave through the arena. Su Hong froze for a moment and let out a tense sound. He looked at the damaged machine with sweat on his face. He said the tester was too flimsy and wondered if they would make him pay for breaking it. Steam and sparks leaked from the machine as it continued to shake. Suddenly, a loud voice shouted from behind, complaining that it was noisy, and asking what he was doing in the middle of the night. Hearing that, Su Hong quickly turned and sprinted away, thinking it was time to run. A few minutes later, an old man in pajamas stood beside the broken combat tester. He yelled angrily, asking which bastard had smashed the tester in the school's martial arena. He looked around and complained that in this school, only two little brats, Chen Shan and Li Tu, would dare to do something like that. The old man grew even more furious. His face turned red as he shouted that when school started he would definitely teach those two a good lesson. The next day, inside the gymnasium of Star City No. 1 High School, students gathered in a large group, while two people stood on the stage. The students talked among themselves as the gym filled with noise. Among the students, Chen Shan stood with a bandage on his head. Su Hong behind him looked confused and wondered why Chen Shan had been beaten up. Another student leaned closer and whispered that he heard Chen Shan had smashed the tester in the outdoor drill ground in the middle of the night and refused to admit it, so the principal punished him. Hearing this, Su Hong beside him sweated nervously, realizing that they had made Chen Shan take the blame. While they were talking, the two men stood by the microphone, one in a brown suit and the other in blue martial clothing. The man in the suit was the principal of Star City No. 1 High School. He told the students to quiet down. He explained that he had invited his old comrade, Chen Tian, a Tier 3 martial artist, to teach them a C-rank martial art called Thunder Rush Fist. He told the students that everyone must learn it well. Hearing that, the students reacted with excitement. One student whispered that it was his first time seeing a Tier 3 martial artist. Another pointed out that C-rank martial arts usually cost hundreds of thousands to learn at outside dojos. When Su Hong heard that it was Thunder Rush Fist, he immediately remembered that the white fox he fought had also used Thunder Rush Fist. The move created a punch that burst out with the impact of 3 punches at once. He thought about how expensive it would be to learn this martial art outside. He clenched his fist and decided that he must seize this opportunity. From the stage, Chen Tian then told the students there was no need for more talking. He announced that he would demonstrate the technique 10 times from start to finish, and how much they learned would depend on themselves. He prepared to begin and first adjusted his footsteps on the gym floor. Instructor Chen Tian demonstrated the Thunder Rush Fist. His body twisted sharply as he threw a powerful punch forward, wind swirling around his arm. He explained that the Thunder Rush Fist carried fierce and domineering momentum, and even at the basic level, a punch would produce the sound of thunder. The students watched as he continued. He said that at the proficient level, a person could strike out 3 sounds. He added that at the micro level, 5 sounds could be produced. He then moved into another stance and declared that at the mastered level, 7 sounds could be struck. Bright energy burst around him as he performed the technique and announced that this was his current realm. He faced the students again and stated that once someone reached the perfect realm, they would be able to strike out 9 sounds. But he told them not to aim too high, saying that reaching the basic level today would be good enough. He then prepared for another round and told everyone that he would start the second demonstration and that they should try to follow along. The students lined up and shouted while copying the movements. Hours passed. The gym floor was now filled with exhausted students sitting or lying down. Some said they couldn't learn it at all, while others complained about being tired. The instructor looked at them and asked if any of them had figured out the trick. A student who was Su Hong's friend sat on the floor trembling. Sweat dripped down his face as he cried out that C-rank martial arts were too hard to learn. He looked around beside him in confusion. He asked Su Hong if he had managed to learn it, but when he turned his head, Su Hong's spot was already empty. But before he could panic, a short distance away, Chen Shan stood proudly in a martial arts stance. Flames of energy rose faintly around him as he shouted that he had successfully reached the basic level. The other students stared in shock. Su Hong's friend wondered how Chen Shan's brain was built to learn it so quickly. He muttered that no wonder people called Chen Shan a genius. Across the gym, the principal stood with Chen Tian. The principal told him that the boy showing off was their school's #1 genius, Chen Shan, and asked if Chen Tian was interested in guiding him. Chen Tian watched calmly and replied that this level was only considered basic in other cities. Then a few minutes later, outside the gymnasium, sunlight fell across the stairs. Chen Tian walked beside the principal. He said that this batch of students wasn't impressive and that coming here was pointless. The principal answered that having even one student reach the basic level was already good enough. He asked if Chen Tian really expected them to find a top-tier genius. In the courtyard, as they walked side by side, Chen Tian told the principal that martial Dao cultivation was extremely cruel and that talent was simply too important. The principal nodded and replied that relying only on hard work without any opportunity was absolutely impossible. Just as they were talking, suddenly both of them stopped. Their eyes widened as loud explosive sounds echoed around them. They turned and saw that a burst of lightning appeared on the training grounds. Su Hong stood there with lightning wrapped around his body. Seeing him, Chen Tian shouted in shock, saying it was the 7-sound Thunder Rush Fist and that the school actually had such an expert. The principal beside him said it was impossible because he had never heard of it. As he stared through the fence, he pointed at Su Hong and shouted that it was a student, based on the clothes. In front of them, Su Hong struck out repeatedly, each punch releasing powerful sounds in the air. Instructor Chen Tian looked stunned and said he had only taught for half a day, yet a student had already reached mastery. The principal rested his face against the fence and asked if he had heard wrong, repeating that the student had made 9 sounds. But instructor Chen Tian stood frozen, trembling slightly. Seeing that, the principal asked him what was wrong. Instructor Chen Tian then lowered his head slightly. Sweat rolled down his face as he shouted that he understood everything now. The next second, lightning gathered around instructor Chen Tian's hand. He clenched his fist as bright sparks wrapped around it. In the next moment, the instructor swung his arm forward with force. He shouted the name of the move, while lightning and impact lines burst around his punch, releasing 8 sounds. After punching, instructor Chen Tian looked excited. Sparks circled his fist as he smiled proudly. The principal beside him was shocked, shouting that the instructor had reached 8 sounds. Instructor Chen Tian explained that watching the Thunder Rush Fist from that student earlier had inspired him, allowing him to break through. Then both of them rushed forward in panic. Instructor Chen Tian said it was not the time to talk and told the principal to quickly find the student who used that move. But when they reached the field, they looked around in confusion. The outline showed that someone had just been there, but the person was now gone. On the other hand, Su Hong, not knowing he was being watched, walked through the street at sunset. He rubbed his shoulder tiredly and said he didn't expect training a C-rank martial skill to be this exhausting, far harder than the D-rank Vajra Fist. Su Hong then opened his system status window. The system screen showed his information. It displayed his name, Su Hong, along with his vitality, spirit, and physique. It listed his martial skills: Thunder Rush Fist, at the perfect level; Vajra Fist, at 5% mastery; Floating Light Palm, at micro level 8%, and Void Step, at micro level 9%. Below that, the martial value was shown as 0. Su Hong looked at the glowing system screen and said that his Thunder Rush Fist had already reached the perfect realm. He explained that he now needed to find a way to earn martial values and try to break through to martial artist soon. He said that unlike last time, he did not need a life-and-death battle. He wondered if sparring normally with someone could also let him obtain martial values. While thinking all that, Su Hong arrived at the entrance of the Raging Thunder Dojo, his workplace. He stood before the open gate and looked inside. Annoyed, he thought to himself that he had finally arrived. Inside the dojo, many students practiced with spears. They moved quickly across the training hall, clashing their weapons against each other as they trained. One of the students noticed Su Hong and walked over. He asked Su Hong why he had come today. Su Hong smiled lightly and answered that nothing special was happening. He had simply come over to practice. While they were talking, suddenly, a man with purple hair stepped violently on a student's head, slamming him into the floor. The student's body shook from the impact. The purple-haired man looked down coldly. He shouted, asking how someone dared to say his teacher taught badly. He said that if the student's comprehension was poor, he should admit it. He demanded to know why excuses were being made. When Su Hong saw that purple-haired man, he asked his friend about the situation nearby. His friend explained that Su Hong hadn't been around lately, so he didn't know what had happened. He said the aggressive instructor was a newly arrived teacher who was very strong. He added that the instructor looked down on common students like them and taught his classes carelessly. He continued explaining that this purple-haired man was that instructor's disciple, a man named Li Yan, who was also very strong. As he said this, Li Yan stepped forward with a confident, arrogant expression. He threw a punch and mocked the person he was fighting, asking how someone of that level dared to challenge him. But before the punch landed, a hand suddenly grabbed Li Yan's wrist, stopping the attack. It was Su Hong who grabbed his hand. Su Hong calmly told him that they should stop here. Li Yan pulled back and angrily demanded to know who Su Hong was. He shouted that if Su Hong had the guts, he should fight him one-on-one in the arena. Su Hong answered without hesitation that he would oblige. Just then, the instructor walked in with an angry expression and shouted, asking why there was so much noise when class was starting. Seeing him, purple-haired Li Yan backed down and glared at Su Hong angrily, saying that Su Hong was lucky. Su Hong looked at him calmly and thought to himself that this person was a bit too arrogant. The instructor then stood before all the students and announced that it was the last day he would be teaching the Raging Sea Spear technique. He said he would follow the old rule and demonstrate it only once. The students watched as he performed the technique with a spear, swinging it sharply across the room. After finishing the move, the instructor narrowed his eyes and said that he was only demonstrating it once because he did not believe they could learn it. But Su Hong stood with a spear in his hand. Blue light wrapped around the weapon as he stepped forward. His expression stayed calm, and his sharp blue eyes focused ahead. In the next moment, a reflection appeared in his eye. The silhouette of the instructor performing the spear technique could be seen clearly inside his pupil. Then, after showing it once, the instructor threw his spear onto the wooden floor with a sharp impact. The instructor then walked toward the doorway with Li Yan. He looked back and said that how much the students learned now depended on themselves. As he left, the students complained loudly. They said that demonstrating it only once was unfair, and that the students in the back could not see anything clearly. But it was different for Su Hong. He lowered his gaze to the spear in his hand. Flames rose behind him as he remembered the explanation. The technique's core was that the spear moved like a flood dragon crossing the sea. With momentum like endless waves, Su Hong held the spear tightly as blue energy wrapped around his arms. His body lowered slightly, and his eyes focused with a calm and determined expression. His body moved. Blue currents flowed around him, while he twisted his stance and swung the spear with powerful force. He stepped forward, spinning the spear as the blue energy followed each movement. The watching students widened their eyes in shock, unable to believe what they were seeing. Some students shouted in surprise, saying that Su Hong seemed to have learned the technique. Others wondered what kind of martial arts prodigy he was, and questioned if they were too stupid to learn it. Hearing the commotion, purple-haired Li Yan rushed out, asking why they were making noise and who they thought had learned the technique. He came forward and saw Su Hong swing the spear again, his movements sharp and smooth as the blue energy trailed behind him. Li Yan watched silently, his expression turning serious. He admitted to himself that Su Hong seemed to have really learned it. He thought that he needed to test Su Hong further, wondering if he truly was a genius. As Su Hong stood with his spear lowered, Li Yan called out to him, saying he would give Su Hong some pointers. Su Hong listened quietly and answered, saying okay. Hearing that, everyone moved back. Leaving space in the center, Li Yan stepped forward and spun his spear with force. Seeing that, a student beside Su Hong warned him not to be impulsive. He said that Li Yan had a bad personality, but very high strength. Su Hong told him not to worry. Su Hong then stepped out. He lifted his spear and asked Li Yan to enlighten him. Li Yan's expression turned sharp. He swung his spear fiercely and shouted that Su Hong was arrogant. He asked Su Hong to watch as he used the Raging Sea Spear technique at the micro level, releasing waves of energy. Su Hong closed his eyes for a moment, then focused. Water-like energy swirled around his spear. In the next moment, his whole body moved like flowing waves. His spear technique became smooth and powerful. Blue energy burst out as Su Hong performed the Raging Sea Spear technique at the proficient level. His movement formed a huge water-like arc across the room. Li Yan stared in shock. He could not believe what he was seeing. He shouted in disbelief, saying it was impossible for Su Hong to reach the proficient level in the Raging Sea Spear technique.